What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? You know, both sides are the fucking same, right? Like applesauce and apple cider vinegar.
Yeah, you made that comparison. I was like, I don't know that I think that that's fair because I think they both are useful
This is true.
things.
This is fair. This is fair.
Applesauce and apple cider vinegar
yeah.
are actually
I
pretty
was
good.
I was gonna do apples and oranges, but they're not quite apples and oranges. Like they both have the apple aspect.
True.
But one's a lot more bitter than the other.
Right. It's apples and apples, not apples and oranges. In what you were trying to make the apples to apples like
right, apples to apples
fun
comparison, except
comparison,
they're both sides aren't the same is what we're fucking getting into on this one, but they're not completely different, and we want to acknowledge that. But it's been a big thing that's been coming up. It's an election year, and it's always a thing in an election year, but I feel like the frustration and the outcry about what's the point of voting, or what's the point in voting for one party or the other when nothing ever feels like it changes, and so my interactions on TikTok, people have been asking me my opinion because they think it's valid or relevant for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know where anybody gets that idea.
I don't either, but they do. They ask my opinion on stuff like third-party candidates, and that's why we decided to do this. Like, what's the point in voting, or what do you think about, Robert Kennedy or Joe Jorgensen or whatever third-party flavor of the week it is today? And so my answer is always kind of the same, but I felt like this deserves a long-form discussion. Because it's the bullshit's thick on one side, and it's the horseshit's deep on the other side. And if you're getting shit from both sides, why pick either? And I understand that sentiment. I really do, and I think it's worth talking about.
It's a sentiment that, funnily enough, leftists on the far left also share that with far right extremists. It's like the one thing that they both like.
It's where we come together.
Yeah, in that the current political structure sucks. For opposite reasons.
Yeah.
But the end result is the same. In that they both uphold our current capitalist structure that basically solidifies the political situation that we have today, and especially when you consider the amount of money that has entered its way into politics, it makes it feel like there's no point in engaging with politics. And to a certain extent, like, there's a lot of data that shows there technically isn't. But we do have a way to do something that is still it's still a right for us. Hopefully it remains that way someday, in a dystopian world where super Earth reigns. It may not be. I don't know. So I guess just be happy that we have like a kind of voice.
I mean, it's
not like be happy and just go home, but like
take your fucking medicine.
Don't take that W and walk away. Like, don't retire on the one bat. Just like say like like this is the situation, and we still have an opportunity to make some changes, and we're gonna talk about some ways that you can actually actually do things with your vote here today,
and help you guys understand why, even though it feels pointless a lot of the time, or the frustration feels like it's worth voting third party or something along those lines. And here's the thing, I'm going to tell you right off, I hate the two-party system. I wish we had more options. I'm also going to tell you right off, voting third party is pointless. There's no viable third party candidate for most national level offices. Occasionally you get like a Bernie Sanders in there at like a Senate level. You're never going to get one at presidential level with the system that we have. Right. You're most likely not going to get it at Senate and Congress. You can start getting third-party stuff the more local you get, where party politics matters less and less.
Yeah, I mean, with the two massive barriers being winner takes all, ranked choice voting, and I guess three, and just the Electoral College as a whole.
Yep.
With those like major barriers, truthfully, there is no way a third-party candidate can win. Not to say that like. And this is where I think we're going to disagree a little bit on this episode, is I am still in the thought that a protest vote is still better than a non-vote.
Okay. I honestly would probably agree a little bit, but I'm cautious on how we
No,
approach that. So we'll get
right,
into that. We'll get
exactly,
into that
exactly.
in a little bit. But that's where I'm preaching the party line on this one when it comes to 2024, and it's like our choices are going to be Joe Biden and Donald Trump, unless something happens with Donald Trump. But the left vote is going to be Donald Trump, or I mean Joe Biden at this point. And you don't fuck with things in an incumbent presidential election year.
Yeah, I mean, this one is super weird, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we're just saying that because it's like one of the first presidential elections that like we're we're definitely old enough now
Mm-hmm.
where like we've seen a couple
Mm-hmm.
and they were, supposedly like interesting. And then you get something like this where everybody's like, this is fucking really interesting and
Yeah.
really fucking weird. And you're like, okay, like this shit it is potentially, you
Mm-hmm.
know, legacy defining for our
Right.
country. And
Mm-hmm.
so I also am also saying that like vote don't vote blue no matter who, but vote Joe Biden because he is not gonna be a maniac in his
Yeah.
second term.
He's not a maniacal fascist who literally has said he wants to be a dictator for a day.
Or
It's
just he
it's
just
just a
wishes that
day.
people would like worship him
Mm-hmm.
with like authoritarian style, like
Mm-hmm.
just bowing down to him. He wishes that's how the public viewed him.
Right. But the thing is that we say this like we are in an existential crisis. It's democracy or fascism. It's the we're fighting for the soul of America, and they're like, yeah, you said that last election and the election before that and the
But
election before that.
it kind of has been that, at
Right.
least with the last
Mhm.
two elections.
For sure. But I mean, we said it under Bush, and I don't want to downplay that either because
I was too young, so I don't know.
oh, I mean, I couldn't vote during the
I
Bush
still
elections,
didn't
but
care that much about politics.
mm,
So, but it
it,
sounds
it,
like you were at a younger age.
it
You're
was it
into
was
it.
the same. It's the same rhetoric, though. Like
Sure.
it's the same thing people say, and the thing is, though, that like if we go back and we look at it, like a lot of the problems we have today are from that, and people weren't necessarily being wrong. They weren't being alarmist. Like you look at the Supreme Court votes,
Yeah.
or nominations. Because George Bush was in office when he was in office, like that is a big reason why Roe got overturned today, and people get burnt out by that. This is the existential crisis of our lifetime, and it is, and it always is, and probably always will be because
Well,
these are.
it's the current
Mhm.
example of crisis. It's the it's
Yeah.
like what's the best you know like if you're a quarterback, like what's the best play you're ever gonna have? It's
Mhm.
like the next one. Like I want the
Yep.
next thing to
Yep.
be like that's the most
Mhm.
important thing, the next game. And I agree with that to a certain extent. I will say, at least from my perspective, it doesn't feel like any of the elections previous to 2016 had even an iota of like this is a different level.
It does feel that way, but it's always going to be different because
Yeah, I don't
because
know.
it was a new level for the first
I
time.
think it's because of Trump. I
Hmm.
think the moment that Trump steps away,
You think it'll
probably
fizzle some
I do, because he is such a like
inflammatory
godlike
character.
figure to the right and to the conservative party that Ron DeSantis was supposed to be like Trump light,
Yeah.
and they like kicked him to the side, to the
Hmm.
curb, and like poured their poop bucket on him and was like, get the fuck out of here. Like
Yep.
he's basically trash now, and I think that
Yeah, no, I think you do have a point, and I think it's definitely unprecedented in so many ways. It's the first time we've ever had a president actively being charged with felony criminal
right,
charges while they
yes,
run for president.
yeah,
We haven't had
that's
many lose the popular vote twice, lose the election after winning the election, and then come back and like try to run for their second term non-consecutively. That's only
right.
happened a couple times in history. So it's unprecedented in a lot of ways, but I get it that we hear it all the time.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, shut the fuck up. It never changes. It doesn't matter.
True.
And
it
that,
does kind of feel that way. I feel that, especially to like a leftist, where you're like, this is just the next capitalist shill over the next capitalist shill. Which to your point, that's exactly what it is. That's just the fact of the matter. I don't know that like crying about who you're going to vote for isn't going to change that fact.
Nope.
So, like,
and then the thing, I mean, I don't think we've talked about this a ton on the podcast, but the Overton window, if people aren't familiar with that, the Overton window is kind of what centers our political system, like what we consider as, centrist or moderate.
Right. It's like if you compare like European politics and that like just like it seems more lefty, and because they have more like social safety nets and they appear to be more socialist, even though they're not any more socialist than we are. But then you compare that to America, and like that's each like country or region's Overton window essentially.
And so like ours has continuously moved to the right really since Nixon.
Yeah.
And
well, to be fair, it's hard to get further. Like historically, FDR brought us to the furthest left
that we've ever
in history, ever in American history. So it's like it's hard to get further left from that point. So like it has, I think it's just gotten more center, and now in the last like basically since Reagan has really made a huge push even further to now it's like really bordering on some fairly right-wing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is something important to remember when you think like, what does it matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat? Is every time you get a Republican in office, the normalcy of what is considered moderate or center moves to the right. That Overton window moves to the right, and now that becomes the norm. That's what you're fighting for, to keep the center of that Overton window there and not moving further to the right.
And it's not even necessarily like if they get elected, it's just because if they become popular in right-wing circles.
Right.
Like if you look at how Trump has just blown up, he hasn't necessarily like implemented a ton of the right-wing policies, the biggest one being like him just allowing Roe v. Wade to be overturned.
Right.
Like by nominating somebody who he presumably knew they were going to eventually come across something like that.
Yep.
So like he hasn't like personally done a lot to like disenfranchise of groups,
but it's not even just disenfranchise. I mean, it's passing tax cuts. Like, the Overton window
yeah.
moved hard to the right under Reagan because of the tax system overhaul, where we went from a 75% top tax bracket to like a 35% top tax bracket or whatever it is. And since then, like, we've raised taxes a few percent here and there, like under Clinton.
Reagan raised taxes once or twice.
Well, after he took them all the way down to like 28%, and they're like, dude, we're really fucking not balancing this budget very well. And he's like, okay, we'll bring them back up a couple. But it's never, ever gone back to pre-Reagan tax rates.
No, absolutely not.
And people would lose their fucking mind if you went today and said, hey, I suggest, if you did the exact opposite, as much as he cut taxes, so by 50% basically, right?
Yeah.
If we're going to do a 50% tax increase, people would lose their shit. And that's a perfect example of that Overton window shift. This was the norm. This was perfectly acceptable. It was considered a moderate position on taxes. And now that would be considered extreme,
I think it was extreme then, but because Reagan was such a prolific figure, they were like, and because of just like the recession that they were going through, they gave him a little bit more wiggle room. Then, I mean, even right now, there's that kind of recession-ish and inflation type wiggle room where, like, other than the fact that raising taxes would make people feel worse.
Right.
Like, it's easier to make the shift to less taxes.
No, it certainly is. And I'm going to get to that later down in this episode, too, is it's easier to break things than to fix them. It's easier to dismantle policy than to pass policy. But we'll get to that in a little bit.
Well, and one last thing on the Overton window is, like, I understand when people say, well, if they're the same, but, like, everything just shifts, every time you vote for somebody, then, like, why vote if all you're doing is like moving your Democratic candidate like a little bit to the right in some of their policies because of like they're being pulled that direction? And I get that, but like having your whole worldview about whether or not you should vote at all based upon the presidential election, like that's just an unhealthy way to look at politics.
It really is. And the presidential election is sometimes, honestly, it could arguably be the least important thing you vote on.
Right. The only thing that's important for it is at this point in today's world is you can do some minor executive orders that can hurt a lot of people.
Yeah.
And or you can nominate a Supreme Court justice.
Right.
That will hopefully or probably do things the way that you want them to do, as it turns out.
And depending on how close Congress is, you can veto stuff, and they might not be able to override it.
Yeah, sure, but I feel like it doesn't get that far off.
No, it doesn't. Anymore. It really doesn't. We put way more weight on the president than we should, and a lot less weight on
he
the
controls
down
the
ballot.
gas prices, don't
you know? So the reality is that as much as we hate it, and believe us, we empathize and we sympathize and we feel it in our fucking soul how much we hate this two-party system. Currently, this is the system that we have, and we can be our own worst enemy when we, start working against it.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds really defeatist, or that sounds very like something Hillary Clinton might say or some shit. But
right. Well, leftists are saying like just hold your vote, withhold your vote. Bernie Sanders supporters did that in 2016. Hillary still got the majority, and we still lost.
Yeah.
And guess who didn't give a flying fuck? The DNC. They didn't give a single iota of shit about whether leftists decided to vote or not because of the way Bernie was treated. So, what does that do you? What is that? How does that help us?
Yep, absolutely. I think it's worth just talking about some of our frustrations with the Democratic Party and why people get the impression that they are the same. Two sides of the same.
Well,
quarter.
that's a pretty wide discussion there.
It is, and I feel like we should just hit some
of the highlights.
Yeah. Obviously, one of the biggest ones going on right now, hot button topic, is Israel.
Yeah. Both parties suck. Democrats are sucking pretty close to the same amount as Republicans, which is kind of a new low.
Yeah.
For them. They didn't expect it. Nobody did. Israel, this recent conflict. But they have reacted really badly.
Abysmally, and people have gotten really passionate about it, as they should.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know if it's because of like TikTok or like social media being just more prevalent than it was in the early 2000s.
1,000% is.
Yeah, so now it's what, like the majority of Democrats, just regardless of age demographic, support an immediate ceasefire.
Yep. And now
none of the Democrats, other than like a few, like AOC and Rashida Tlaib, a few of those people are saying ceasefire now, but like almost all of the just like normal, what you would consider normal Democrats are not saying that at all.
I mean, to be fair, they're starting to see the writing on the wall and seeing how unpopular. Which Democrats are notorious for. We're in an election year, and they're like, "Hey, anybody got ideas on how we can fuck this thing up? We really like fucking it up in an election year. What's the most unpopular shit we can do right now? Just pretend the thing in Israel isn't the thing in Israel. That sounds like a good thing. Let's stick with that." But Joe Biden.
Yeah, go ahead.
He did finally say that he supports a ceasefire. He was like tongue punching an ice cream cone with Jimmy Kimmel or some shit when he said it. So it didn't quite give the impact of
it wasn't like a State of the Union speech.
No.
It's almost like he had a platform. He could have said something that was meaningful and didn't.
It was no Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall type of impactful like.
Yeah, I mean, even somebody like Bernie, who has really withheld his support for a ceasefire, at least stating it in just clear terms, it kind of sucks.
It really does.
It makes me wish for the good old days of the Bernie that we're not seeing anymore.
Right.
I mean, the 4-day work week, like he's still doing his stuff, but like,
and he's always been a domestic policy and social policy person. Like, he's never focused on foreign policy. I mean, I think he gives zero fucks about foreign policy.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm fine with that.
He definitely was like pretty pro Palestine, at least comparatively to the rest of the Democrats in 2016. Like he put Hillary like on her fucking ass.
Yeah.
It's not, although that wasn't hard to do.
No.
She's like, oh, they're basically subhuman, fucking terrorists, every single one of them, and they all deserve to die, basically.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, that has been tough, and it's been really tough on Biden's support. At the end of the day, I honestly, the more and more time goes by, I honestly don't know that it matters and that it will affect his actual, like, the people that were going to vote for him are mostly either like, yeah, we should help people, or indifferent. Like, those are the true blue Democrats.
Right.
And like the people, the majority of Americans who do care a lot are really young and have not really voted in the past anyway, and or are just pretty, we're already like pro-Palestine and like very much aware of this issue.
Right, but there's a lot, and I do want to get into this specific topic a little bit later, not quite here, but there's a lot of progressives and leftists and young people who are like, I'm not voting for Joe Biden because he's supporting genocide. I'm not voting for all of these people in Congress or the Senate because they're supporting genocide. And obviously, that's the most bipartisan thing we got going on in Washington right now. But it's definitely a situation that I completely empathize with, sympathize with. This is the most both sides are the same thing I think I've ever seen.
Pretty close.
We will we'll get into that in a second. Obviously, Democrats preach about healthcare reform and abortion right, codification, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of gums flapping and not a lot of
Gums
bills
because they're all so fucking old. Not just because of the saying.
Forgot our teeth in the glass jar
right.
this morning.
Yeah. So obviously, like failing to pass like true revolutionary healthcare change. Obama did like a half measure. Obviously, that has not had the impact that.
Speaking of Overton window shit, the ACA was Mitt Romney's healthcare plan.
Right?
So
exactly. It was a left wing win, but it was basically gift wrapped that way by Mitt Romney in the right wing.
Yeah, I mean it was devised by a Republican think tank, a conservative think tank. Like that's another beautiful example of the Overton window shift.
Right. Or just the way that the Democrats just like love to like
give
fail
every
on purpose.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it was like this immigration bill that the Republicans then didn't pass because heaven forbid you give Joe Biden a win in an election year.
Yeah.
But also, like, I'm kind of glad it didn't pass because it was just
pretty bad.
It was literally like the Republican immigration bill. It was everything they wanted.
Right. Besides them giving them carte blanche to be like the frickin' Gestapo
Right.
level, like deporter, and
Yeah, it was tied in a bow, gift wrapped package to the Republicans, and they are just that incompetent that they can't even pass their own shit.
Yeah.
When the Democrats just like got down on our knees and like opened our throat for them on this one, and so I'm glad it didn't pass. But it's another example of
right, and of course obviously abortion rights. Obama said that was like one of the first things he needs to do was codify abortion rights, and he didn't.
And then Biden gets elected, and
Biden didn't have the opportunity.
Yeah, he did. He absolutely fucking did. It was overturned after he was elected, and he had a majority in the House and the Senate.
I thought he never had a true majority.
He had a true majority. I mean, he always had. He had for the first 2 years a majority in the House, and it was a 1+ majority in the Senate, which isn't huge, but they could have at least tried to codify it.
Right.
I mean, the Senate could have filibustered, and I know they need 2/3 majority vote on that kind of shit sometimes and whatever.
Yeah.
But they didn't even fucking try.
Right. I don't really remember a huge push from the House or anything like that.
Yeah. It was in 2022. That's
so long ago.
Yeah, it was because this was one of the first things that I ended up talking because I was a skeptic. I'm like, they're not going to overturn it. And I remember making content about it, and I started in 2022. It was summer 2022 that it happened
So that doesn't sound like summer of 2022. That would be at the midterm. So like
it was coming into the midterms, but so they had 2 years at that point to codify. It got overturned in 2022.
Yeah, right.
When they had a fucking majority.
Especially, why leave it up to the Supreme Court that you knew was like, potentially going to overturn it?
Yeah, the fucking Handmaid's Tale up out there, and like they think,
Yeah. So that sucks. Obviously.
Yep. Student debt, obviously.
Student debt, I think, is a mixed one for me. Like, Joe Biden has, forgiven like $150 billion over the last 4 years of student loan debt, which is like good.
Yeah,
like,
it's
good.
cool.
It's not 400 billion of like the 10,000 that like people were hoping for. So like,
or all of it, which is what people are really like ideally hoping for.
Yeah, no, that's
so like that's been a frustration, especially with a lot of people who are counting on that 10,000 and then got that pulled back from them and everything like that.
Yeah, for sure.
The TikTok ban, obviously a big one here recently. That was another super bipartisan thing, which
Have
I think.
you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
Chinese Party? No.
No, I'm from Singapore.
That's in China, right?
No,
you got the same squinty eyes I've seen the Chinese people have.
that's right. I know that was a Republican asking those questions, but
I mean, it's the same thing. They all voted for it. Obviously, this was Jeff Jackson's fall from grace, and he was our hero, man. He was our poster child.
We definitely gave him a lot of pats on the back, and which I guess we're taking a couple of those back.
Oh yeah, we are definitely asking for those pats back. But like that's another bipartisan, very both sides are the same type of thing. I think that's a good example of you don't give a shit about what we want, you give a shit about what you want.
And then obviously you have the defense spending, which is never ending with Democrats.
Yeah, obviously Republicans want to raise defense spending more, but Democrats are never like, nah, we're not signing off.
They're like,
on this
how about
one.
just a little bit less? They're like, okay, we'll work with that. And then obviously, federal minimum wage raise, which is just crazy considering the federal minimum wage is like the poverty line.
$7.25 an hour, and it has been that way for 15 years, a decade and a half.
That's especially when everybody's complaining about inflation. You're like, how about we raise minimum wage to match inflation? No. Let's not do that.
Yep.
That's insane.
And weak union.
Mixed union. I would say mixed.
Mixed.
Like,
I would
the
say
NLRB is a huge W, but also like the public's lack of support for the railroad union was just
that was a rough one, and it was
really
like coming into I'm the strongest union president in fucking history.
Yeah,
and
besides a couple notable people.
Yeah, we've had a few up there that were pretty big on union support, and they never fucked over the railroad union in the process of being like, look at how great at unions I am.
Yeah, that was bad.
So, you look at stuff like that, and it's like, hey, you got these are the people. There's no, aside from the police union, probably, there's no unions fighting for the Republicans, and the fact that the Democrats, like, in that situation, couldn't just be like, I'm full force behind the union no matter what. Especially in a situation like right after the Norfolk Southern disaster and all that. Like, it was bad optics all the way around.
That was like the perfect opportunity. He had all of the optics being like, yeah, the railroads are really unsafe right now, and these people are literally asking just for them to make it safer for them to operate the railroads.
They're not even asking for like huge wage increases. They're just we need more people,
and we need sick days.
Yeah,
like every other fucking full-time job that out there.
We need some rest time, so we don't fall asleep at the wheel, quite literally.
Us having to find somebody on short notice would be too much of a cost burden for the railroads. It's like, welcome to every other industry ever.
Yeah. So it a lot of times feels like Dems are all talk and no action. I mean,
a couple L's there for sure.
And like you look back and it's like I've gotten this in videos before when I've just highlighted how fucking bad the Republicans have been for like the economy. It's like they passed all of this legislation that is still affecting us today, going all the way back to Nixon and Reagan. And they're like, well, you've had Clinton and Obama and Biden since then. Why didn't they fix it? If they could fuck it up and do bad policy, why haven't the Democrats fixed it? And why are we still fighting the same issues 40 years later if they're not the same, or if the Democrats are that much better? And in part, it is because both the Democrats and the Republicans are beholden to corporate donors. I am not disillusioned about that at all.
Yeah, that's certainly a massive problem, and certainly a massive, reason why we haven't received any like massive progressive, changes, much less just like not having life suck worse.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's why you still don't see Democrats ever push for big tax increases on the rich. It's why when it comes to like regulating the railroad industry
Yeah.
and pushing for some more union support. They're like, kind of shit,
Right.
It definitely is a big part of it, and I'm not gonna try to blow sunshine up your ass and tell you that it's not.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than that. A lot more to it than
Yeah, I
that.
mean, the simple analogy, just to put
Mhm.
it like super, super simply, is like if you're building a
Mhm.
Lego building
Yeah.
or your Lincoln Log
Mhm.
cabin, and your little sister or brother comes up and kicks it and blasts it into oblivion.
Uh-huh.
It's going to take you a little bit of time to put it back together,
Yeah.
and it may not ever look the same. But
Eh,
it took 2 seconds
Right.
for
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
kick it.
It took you all day to build it, and it took them 2 seconds. And then and then you got to think about now you're starting to try to put it back together, but your little sister's still coming by every once in a while and knocking a log out,
Yeah, and it's like,
or they hit it somewhere and you can't find it to get it back, so you're missing pieces.
and will you ever be the same again after going through the trauma of
Right.
having such a beautiful palace Lincoln Log cabin destroyed?
Exactly. But yeah, it's not just them burning it down every chance they have.
Right.
It's when you're trying to rebuild it, them fighting you every step of the way. And this
Yeah.
is the thing that people forget is like presidents don't write legislation. They don't pass legislation.
Yeah.
They sign it into law or
and
veto it.
and
That
they
is
can
their
ask
only
and promote for other
right.
legislation to be put towards them, but they don't get the option.
No, they're not the ones writing laws and policy. They either sign it or they veto it. That's pretty much all they can do. And then they can write executive orders, but executive orders always get challenged in court.
Right, and or over like just switched around
next
the
president
moment the
co-
next
mhm.
president comes in.
So, I mean, like, Trump led by executive order for
Yeah.
a really long time, and the first thing that Biden did when he got in office was undid all of Trump's executive orders, or
For
a
the
lot of
most
them.
part,
Yeah.
other than like some of the really shitty immigration ones that
Mhm.
he's still
Yeah.
still basically he tried to fight them like a little
Mhm.
bit, but like was like, oh darn,
Yeah.
didn't get passed.
Mm-hmm.
I tried.
Yep. And then student debt forgiveness is a great example of
Yeah.
Biden did that by executive order, and the court came along and said nope.
Right.
And then there's just nothing you can do. So like we put you need if a president's going to get legislation passed, they need full control of the House and the Senate, and usually 2/3 control of the Senate because we've got a stupid voting law that's not just
Yeah.
a simple majority for a lot of big things. So just because Clinton had 8 years and Obama had 8 years and Biden has 4 years now, may have 8 years, doesn't mean that they can pass everything they want to pass.
Right.
Um,
There's a lot that goes into it.
Mhm.
But-
And then even with vetoes, vetoes can be
Yeah.
overridden. If Congress has the support to do that, and usually every midterm, people are like, "Well, you didn't do absolutely everything I wanted you to do, so now I'm going to go vote for the other people in the midterm." And then you just have gridlock for the next 2 years. So you get to the presidential election, and they're like, "Everything's fucked up again. I'm going to go vote the other way again." And like this is part of the problem. And then there's the filibuster, which our favorite senator Mitch McConnell has effectively used to make sure nothing fucking happens ever.
Yeah, honestly, Mitch McConnell's like fucking like chokehold on the Senate for the last couple decades has been just like an accomplishment on his part.
Oh my
Like,
God,
truly,
yeah,
that's
no.
never been seen before.
No, yeah.
So there's that. You could point to just Mitch McConnell, and that
Yeah.
would be a pretty good like reason as to say like why not to give Democrats an out
No.
by any means, but like there's like some reasoning there.
Yeah.
I mean, to a little bit.
Like if you're mad about Obama not accomplishing the stuff you wanted to accomplish, there is a very large chance that the reason he didn't accomplish something is solely Mitch McConnell's fault.
There's a
Like,
turtle-sized hole in Obama's agenda.
God, I cannot wait for the rager party we are going to throw when that motherfucker finally rids himself of his mortal coil and man, goes enjoys a Ronald Reagan sitting on a pineapple in hell. So
Obviously, there are differences, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
there
even
are.
like there are some things that like Democrats obviously suck at, which we've just spent the last
Mhm.
15 minutes describing in great detail. But just, I mean, you just look at like the brainchild of the right now is Project 2025.
Yeah.
The brainchild of the left is like, hey, let's give people like bodily autonomy, make sure that people can get married and go to businesses in an equal manner. Let's make sure that everybody has equal access to at least basic education, whether that be pre-K or just just graduation from high school, even like just moderate stuff like that.
Maybe we should feed children at lunch sometimes.
Right. And like maybe we should like plan on like at least saying that we're not going to destroy our planet in the next 25 years. At least like, project that like we want to preserve the planet's environment in some manner.
Yeah.
How about those things? Like those are important. Like those are that's the choice that you're being given.
Absolutely, and I think that is really where we need to focus on. This is the differences between the Republicans and the Democrats, right? Because the Republicans, they get votes by rage farming. They hate farm. They give you an enemy. Say that this enemy is coming. Everything that's wrong in your life is the trans illegal Mexicans' fault, right? And
yeah,
and they get people angry about that, and that's not the corporate side. We can't get away from on either one of them, but the way that they
not through this type of voting.
No, but the way that they are doing their corporate overlords' bidding is very different, right? And the Republicans. Because you need power to do your corporate overlords bidding. Like you need to be in power to be able to do shit for them. And like the big wealthy people who are buying our politicians don't give a shit if you're trans or not. They don't give a shit if you're, legal or not. They don't give a shit if women can get abortions or not. But you can't go and say, "Hey, I'm here fighting so Jeff Bezos can get another tax break." Like you can't go and run on that particular platform very well. Although sometimes they do seem to do that.
Yeah. I guess last night I was thinking about this. I was kind of laying in bed and I was like, "What's the best analogy that I can think of?" And what I came to the conclusion was, Democrats are basically okay with us pushing the same amount of kids into the orphan crushing machine that we always do every year. And it's like, maybe we'll do a little bit more, but basically you're not going to notice a difference. But there's still going to be an orphan crushing machine.
Yeah.
Republicans are like, let's just throw them all in now.
Yeah. What are we waiting for? It seems much more efficient if we just do it all right off the bat.
Exactly. They're like, what's the most efficient way to crush all the orphans? That's the choices that we're being given, and that's the best way I can describe it.
Right. But the motivation behind it, because like again, the Republicans don't really care about abortion or immigration or any of these things, which we've seen with their voting habits like throughout fucking history. Obviously, we gave them their immigration bill that they wanted, and they're like, yeah, no. Like, because now I can't rage farm. If I passed this, I couldn't rage farm about how they're doing nothing about immigration because they did everything we said that they should do about immigration. But they're only using that to get morons to vote for them, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's to stir up their base, obviously.
Right. And they do that so they can get into office and give their rich overlords tax cuts. Now, the Democrats also want to get into office and give their rich overlords tax cuts, but they're like, all right, we need to appeal to the other side of that coin. And the other side of that coin is like, hey, gay people should be allowed to be gay, and trans people should...
That rich corporation owners, CEOs, they don't give a shit about those kind of things. So it's like, it's easy for them to be for those things because the people who like pay for them, they don't care. And so like the Republican people just have like, they have the same responsibilities to their corporate overlords, but they just like use a different tactic to stir up their base.
But that's an important difference.
Oh, it is.
It's a very important difference because right now we're screwed with our kleptocracy, oligarchy, plutocracy, whatever ocracy you want to pretend that our democracy is.
We're not a democracy. We're a republic.
Oh my god. But the way that they go about doing their bidding can be at least somewhat more favorable to us, or it can be really oppressive to us. And that is like a huge thing. Is like one group is doing it while hurting fewer people.
True. Yes, if you're looking for mitigation, at
Mm-hmm.
least like short term or just overall, then yeah, I mean that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then here's where, because they don't rage farm the way that Republicans do, obviously the candidates that we want, the progressives, the Bernie Sanders, the AOCs, they always identify more with the Democratic Party,
Right.
right? So if we want to get these candidates in office and give them some sort of power to do anything, we have to give them the structure in which they can work with
The
that.
apparatus.
Mm-hmm. And sadly, at this point, that is a corporate Democratic Party.
Right.
But we have good people in the halls of Congress and
Yeah.
good people running as Democrats. Not every single one of them takes PAC money. Not every single one of them has bent over for their corporate owners.
Yeah,
And
I mean, the biggest example is obviously Bernie,
Mhm.
especially with his recent proposal for a 4-day work week. Like
Mhm.
that's a huge thing for average Americans,
Yeah.
everyday Americans.
And even
And
though it'll probably never get passed,
yeah, but at least somebody's
right?
trying,
And
like
and that
putting the stuff forward.
and that is one of, again, those Overton window shifting
Right,
mechanisms that
right.
says this isn't that radical. There is a U.S. senator up here saying, yeah, this is here. Other countries are doing it. Here's the numbers, the metrics that say that this isn't that ridiculous.
Right,
I'm
right.
I'm writing legislation and putting it forward that says this is something we should do. Now, if it doesn't get passed, it doesn't get passed, and we know that. But people don't view that then as such a radical idea. It
Hmm.
normalizes those kinds of ideas. So getting those people into positions of power where they can even just platform those ideas, whether they may put
Yeah.
them into law or not right away.
Right. We always talk about like a
Mm-hmm.
platform, and it's like he's on it and he's saying the right stuff. Obviously, he's not perfect. We've
No.
already said that,
Mm-hmm.
but like he is saying the right things a very, very large majority of the time.
Yeah.
And that's more than can be said about anybody
Mm-hmm.
else. So
Um, and then
most
occasionally,
people, at least.
occasionally they get their stuff through.
Yeah. Yeah. Every once in a while.
Every once in a while, uh, the needle does move. Like, it doesn't feel like it, and it gets bogged down by all the shit that it doesn't move by. But you think about it. Obviously, uh, we got the Chips Act and the Science Act, the Infrastructure Bill. We've had a marijuana decriminalization and even legalization coming across the country because it doesn't even need to be at the federal level. Like, a lot of this stuff.
Right. But yeah, I have it in here as
Hmm.
Biden has asked, I don't know what the fuck
Hmm.
that means,
Hmm.
but supposedly he is trying to push the regulators that run the federal agencies to
Hmm.
reclassify marijuana and or just like compile the fucking data out
Hmm.
there to help generate some sort of conclusion. So it's like not actually like as good as like just saying like, yep, it's no longer Schedule 1,
Right.
or like legalizing it
Hmm.
outright, like Minnesota has, but
Hmm.
like I
But
don't know
Minnesota
something.
has, Colorado has, a lot of
Yeah,
states
yeah. I
have.
mean, we're getting close to what was that blue line?
Hmm.
What's it like 20 states or something
Yeah.
like that?
So these are needle moves that even if they're not happening on the federal level, these push towards the federal level, and they're
Yeah,
the wheels of
it helps
progress
every
turn.
state make the right decision. So
Absolutely. And nobody wants to be the first. And so, like, obviously every time that, there's more of a consensus and you can see the results of passing these types of legislation, more states are willing to adopt it. And eventually, the country is willing to adopt it, as we saw with, gay marriage legalization and stuff like
yeah.
that. Obama had a bunch of big wins that we often forget about.
Yeah, I mean, he had 8 long years, and he had probably one of the most generous Congresses at any point in the
Mhm.
last 2 decades. But yeah, he had a lot of W's, and I think we could talk about that. But I think it would be a good idea for us to basically just kind of move on to
Right. The
you know,
point is
yeah,
to just remember that even though a lot of times it doesn't feel like anything's getting done, um, it is. It
yeah,
is, and it's getting done in comparison to what would happen if the GOP was in control.
right, yeah.
Um, you
At the
know,
end of the day, I mean, you're better off because
hmm
of Democrats, and
right.
you're gonna be a lot worse off unless you're a a straight white person who's a Christian, in America if the right gets a majority power. So
Absolutely. Roe was obviously overturned thanks to Republican legislation and pushing and presidencies specifically.
yeah,
And yeah, the Israel issue. This is something that comes up all the time, and this is one of those things where it's like I can't condone what most Democrats' stance is on this,
no,
but the alternative is somebody who is going to be A-okay with straight up genocide. At least there's like some sort of like walking it back at this point. It might be while eating ice cream, but he's like, yeah, maybe we should have some sort of, because it's starting to like look bad for us. The Republicans don't fucking give a shit if Gaza is completely pummeled into the ground, and so it's like you give Trump the reins to handle Netanyahu, and what do you think he's gonna do? Carte blanche. What's taking you so goddamn long?
I mean, hell, only 25% of boomers that are Democrats above 65 fucking care about Palestinians,
Yeah.
much less fucking GOP. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So I mean, there's like I get it, and we should be calling them out and condemning them for it, but taking their keys away and giving it to the drunkest person in the room because we think that they're maybe not the best driver is not a good not a good thing.
It's just not gonna.
No.
And we'll talk a little bit more about it, but
Okay.
couple people that I would suggest. So this is just me saying, like, if you are, there's no way. Like, okay, go ahead.
Sorry, one more point. The biggest difference, and if you only vote on one issue and one issue alone, is SCOTUS, the Supreme Court. The Republicans have focused on the judicial branch since Nixon.
Right.
And that has been by far their biggest success in affecting U.S. policy. And that is the reason that Roe got overturned, is because nobody cares about SCOTUS picks. It's not a sexy, glamorous part, but we can't vote on them, and they are lifetime appointments. And people who Reagan appointed are still affecting us today. People who Baby Bush appointed and Daddy Bush appointed are still affecting us today. People who Trump appointed will be affecting us for a generation.
Yeah.
And that if nothing else, if you think they're absolutely all the same, but you think that there is a slight difference between Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Clarence Thomas,
Right.
that is.
I mean, yeah, that does make it the most stark difference for you, and just plain like this is the actual things that are being changed from your life because of the presidency. More than anything, I think, really.
Absolutely, and that is, I can't drive that point home far enough. If nothing else, if you don't give a shit about the policy or about, you think that they really are the same, that is the one glaring place where they are incredibly, incredibly different, and the place that has the most impact on our lives, on policy, on anything going forward. So if you're going to vote on one issue, that is the issue that matters. For the love of God, do not let Donald Trump appoint any more fucking Supreme Court justices.
Yeah. Did we fill Ruth Bader Ginsburg's spot?
Yeah, we did
Was
with
it,
Jackson.
Okay. Got it.
No, not sorry, not that wasn't Ginsburg. That was Ginsburg got filled with fucking
Kavanaugh or
Kavanaugh.
Amy Barrett Cohen.
I think it was Kavanaugh.
Amy Cohen Barrett.
Yeah, whatever. Fucking like I said, Handmaid's Tale. No, I'm pretty sure it was Kavanaugh. I think. I don't know. It was supposed to be Garland,
right?
But then Mitch fucking McConnell.
Right.
We can't do it this close to an election year.
A year and a half out from the fucking election.
And then I think it was Amy
Barrett Cohen.
Whatever.
I'm
yeah.
100% sure.
All right. It was her. They like rammed through. It's like, we've got like 4 days to get this shit done, and they fucking.
Yeah. No, Kavanaugh was before Amy Barrett Cohen though, so you're probably right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that is kind of what it comes down to in a way. I don't know if there's any other like impending justice movement going to happen.
But I mean, look at Scalia. Scalia's death was very unexpected.
True.
Any one of them could die at any moment.
A lot of them are fucking old. That's true.
Maybe one day Clarence Thomas will be impeached because he's a horrible, traitorous scumbag of a
They
human
can never be
being.
impeached. There's nobody that overrules them, obviously.
They can actually be impeached, and one has.
No, I know.
Mhm.
But I'm just joking.
No, I know.
With a
It won't happen. None have ever been removed. One was impeached but not removed. It's very unlikely. But, maybe with a former president being convicted of some felonies, maybe we'll start having some more accountability in office. I'm not going to hold my breath for it because I don't think blue is a good color on me. But, no,
it's my favorite color.
But if there's a very real possibility that during any term in the next few presidents, another Supreme Court justice could have some situation where they are no longer
True.
in their place, and we really cannot afford to allow Republicans to keep putting people on the bench.
Very true. Very true.
Well, we had to take a momentary break there as Taylor had a work call. So if this sounds slightly abrupt change of...
You don't know what you're talking about. You don't see anything or hear anything. Nothing has changed. The glitch in the Matrix was never there.
Also, in the middle of his work call, our guest for our second episode that we were recording today showed up. So we had to record that in the middle of this one. So we're kind of getting back into it. But also, if you've made it this far and you're listening and you haven't heard the Jen Schultz interview yet, you should definitely go check that out.
Yes.
Because it was excellent. It's a little long, but she's running for Congress in my district. It's near and dear to my heart. So definitely go check that one out. And give her your support if you can. But we're back into why both parties are not the same. If you listen to that, I think you'll also really kind of get the idea of why both parties are not the same, because we threw some of the tough questions on her. She's a Democrat DFLer running here in Minnesota for Minnesota's 8th district. And we threw some of the things that we were bitching and complaining about on why, the Democrats aren't.
Yeah, we kind of mixed the episodes together a little bit. Like, if we could just do one 3-hour-long episode for you guys, like, I'm sure that'd be awesome, right? Like, that can't hurt.
Just donate a full work day to us here. But anyway, yeah, check that out, because I think that actually does really tie in really well with this episode, is the fact that she's running for U.S. Congress, and she's definitely not a both parties are the same type of person. And we put those questions on her. We put the Israel question on her. We put ranked choice voting questions on her. We put campaign finance questions on her. I mean, I tried to put the tough questions on her, and half of them she answered before I even got to them. So I think it fits really well with this. But back to that, I put on SCOTUS.
Right, yeah.
Being the one issue if you vote on nothing else.
Certainly. Along with that being abortion rights and all that stuff, being the
SCOTUS. I mean, that is abortion rights. Like the fact that we lost
fact.
Roe v. Wade is because of the appointees that Trump got put on the Supreme Court on the bench. So that's things that is affecting real people today. Women are dying because people voted for Donald Trump, and Donald Trump got Amy Coney Barrett, or whatever the fuck her name is, and and Judge Light up there.
Right. Judge, keep my calendar when I'm 20 years old in college. But if you were interested in the third party, not that we're saying you should be, or specifically for this, but because we're not saying vote blue, no matter who. So let's talk about who other than the blue.
Yeah.
That sort of kind of doesn't work. I don't know. But I highlighted 3 candidates here. There's obviously many more.
There's many. There's a ton on TikTok people have been asking me about. And you guys got to remember, too, that a lot of these third-party candidates, when we talk about them not being viable, a lot of times people don't even understand how not viable they're going to be, because most of them aren't even going to be on the ballot in
it's
any
incredibly difficult to get on all 50 ballots if you're not part of the 2 major parties. Even like the Green Party and the Libertarian Party, like I think they are on all the states, but like they didn't used to be.
No.
So like it,
And I'm not even certain that they are on all the states, but I mean, it
I
is.
think it's very close if it's not
Mm-hmm.
all of them. These days, I think they have pretty widespread availability. But so we're not going to talk about Jill Stein because she's been running for president since
Oh my
we were
God.
born. You there's a few others. If you want to, if I don't know who else you had that people were talking about on TikTok, but I'll just run through a couple of them
Yeah.
here. So like Claudia de la Cruz is a really interesting candidate who is supportive of socialist policies, working within the United States without a like massive governmental like shift. So
Mm-hmm.
like there's no revolution, but still implementing some socialist policies. So she's not super widely known. I'm not even sure she is actually going to end up on all 50 states.
Shouldn't end up on any.
Um, I think she will end up on some, but probably not all of them. Which is unfortunate. I think she's got some really cool
Mm-hmm.
ideas. So look her up, Claudia de la Cruz,
Mm-hmm.
if you are of that persuasion. Another guy I really like, and you probably have heard of him, is Cornel West. He is just like a really smart guy who is just really, really an
Oh.
activist for humanity. Like that's honestly the best way to describe him. Like he is just truthfully like for supporting
He reminds me of
everybody.
Einstein with more melanin.
But instead of physics, it's public policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's totally fair. I don't know if I hadn't really heard him like speak before this last
Mm-hmm.
year, or within the last year, and the first time I heard him talk, I was like this guy, like, he does truthfully care about people, and
Yeah.
you can like tell that his convictions are not of a politician's. Like it's
No.
of a person who
Mm.
actually has a heart and also is concerned for the everyday person.
Yep.
And obviously including African American, Black population, and just
Mm-hmm.
anybody who's been oppressed, any population that's been oppressed. So highly, highly recommend him. I don't know which party he's affiliated with right now because he was originally with the People's Party, I believe, and then he went to the Green Party, and then the Green Party officially nominated Jill Stein. So
Again.
again, so I'm not 100% sure how much she's going to end up on the ballots this year either. But like, I don't know. These are just good people to be aware of to show like what candidates could be. You
Yeah.
know, like if anything, that's all you take away is like these are people and they are running for office. And if we had options like ranked choice voting, then maybe they could actually make it to some
Mm-hmm.
position of power and do the amazing things that they're talking about.
To be clear, we are not telling you do not vote for these people this election as president. Well, we're gonna get into this a little bit
Yeah.
because Taylor and I have some. Not I'm not even gonna say differing of opinion. We'll get into that, but you still had the ERFK.
Yeah. So obviously, RFK Jr. is some people call him a spoiler. I think that's an overblown term.
It is. Yeah.
It He is the independent candidate who started as Democrat, and is now obviously independent. But obviously, he built a career as a lawyer and environmental activist. Like really great stuff, really great career. Pre like 1990 or like 2000. And then he sort of got pulled into like some vaccine
I
conspiracy
mean, he
stuff.
did a lot of drugs for a while.
I guess I don't know about that, but
Yeah, he's he's had some addiction issues, and then screwed some women that weren't his wife, and now he believes vaccines cause autism or some shit.
yeah, basically, I like heard him talk. I think it was on Joe Rogan or something else like that. And I did listen to like the whole hour-long podcast. And
God, you
like
listen to that man talk for an hour. Just the voice would
was-
just like drive me up a
it
fucking
was
wall.
grating. It was grating at first. You do kind of get used to it, and you do like start to understand what he's saying a little bit better. And like I understand, like if you're not like a hard left or right kind of person, like the appeal, like he does say a lot of the things about like how the United States has basically been captivated by corporations and no longer really serves its populace. And it's like, yeah, like that's accurate. That's 100% correct. But then he sprinkles in a little bit of like I don't he doesn't consider himself an anti-vaxxer, and when he breaks down what he actually believes about vaccines, I don't believe he's actually anti-vaxxer either. I would describe it as like hypercritical of vaccines, but still like not really like sure about them. Like it's this weird thing. He like says like vaccines are good in some cases, but like also they might have caused autism or do cause autism in some cases. And it's like,
And
what are you talking about?
He repeats a lot of debunked shit, which is like,
that's the conspiracy, like the Joe Rogan like levorectin or whatever bullshit kind of horse pill you can take to apparently not get
ivermectin.
COVID.
Yeah.
To fucking get COVID. Like he's in that sphere, and it's like it's weird because like you could make a case that like we don't have enough testing for vaccine or just like drugs in general in America. But you can't make that case while also like saying all the weird shit that you're saying. And so he crosses that line that makes it feel just like
it just loses all credibility at that point, because he talks about the pharmaceutical industry and raises some legitimate concerns about the pharmaceutical industry, and then again goes into the "but vaccines cause autism" thing, and it's like, all right, buddy, you had me there in the first half, but
yeah, exactly.
You know, and that's kind of been his career as a whole. He's very much a Ralph Nader in the sense that like he's very idealistic. He was obviously very passionate to a detriment about environmental policy. Like, you know, I mean, Ralph Nader is a huge reason why the nuclear industry has such a bad rap.
Right.
And RFK is kind of in that same vein of they almost they miss the forest for the trees. They get way too idealistic on a topic, and they will hone in on something that ultimately their work ends up sometimes doing more harm than good, especially when they get out of their lane and try getting into politics.
Yeah, like I enjoy when politicians like really dive into a particular topic and discuss like the actual policies and issues that they want to try to do. Like that's important for me. It shows like you actually understand the issues and you're not just like speaking out for no reason and just word vomiting all over the place. But he goes a little bit too far into the conspiracy side of things that it just I can't fully like endorse that at all. So, but he is polling and somewhere between 50 and 22%.
Yeah,
depending upon
it's
which poll.
Super early.
It is super early, and polls are not votes.
No.
So, like, just because 15 to 22% of people are like, yeah, I'd vote for him, doesn't mean when they actually go to the voting booth that they're actually going to write down his name,
or that those people would go to the voting booth at all.
Yeah, or they actually show up at all. So, but that is still significant. He is the largest third candidate, period, much less third party candidate out there today. And if he gets anywhere near even half as much of that lowest number, he's going to go down in history as one of the most successful third-party candidates we've ever seen in America. So,
and I mean, and he's got name recognition.
And that Super Bowl commercial that came out. I don't know if you watched that commercial at all, but
it was on in the bar, but like the volume wasn't turned on because we were at the bar. So yeah, I didn't hear it, but I saw his face and his lips moving, and I heard that grating voice in the back of my head. God, could you imagine listening to that thing give a fucking State of the Union speech?
I mean, it's not that much worse than like this nonsensical speak pattern of like Trump.
Yeah,
or,
I mean,
honestly, even Biden. Like I had a little bit of trouble sometimes when he was on his last, speech. Was like I feel like I kind of have to listen a little extra hard just to follow along. So I don't know. I hear you, and it's not pleasant, but it's not like that crazy considering the people we have available right now.
It's a fair point. It's different though, because like the shit that Trump says makes no fucking sense, but the voice is annoying.
But it's clear, at least.
It's
you
clear.
can fully understand the word.
The word. I don't understand the message, but the words come out. Unless it's like bigly or big league.
Yeah, when it makes up words, it does get a little difficult, for sure.
But, and Biden's the same way. It's not that, like, the voice isn't annoying. It's just sometimes, like, the shit that's coming out of his mouth, and you're like, I'm not following there, Grandpa, but...
He feels like sometimes like the grandparent that's in the nursing home where you're like trying to follow along and like you mostly do.
Yeah.
But every once in a while,
Every once in a while, it's a flashback to 1974, and
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then so last bit here for JFK or RFK Jr. Sorry.
Also part of the name recognition thing that I
Right,
was just
yeah,
mentioning is
just
it's
mixed it
the
up.
fucking Kennedy name, and it's a
Right.
junior. It's a Kennedy Jr. They basically just give them political positions, right? That's what they.
Right. Yeah. So he did just announce his VP this I think yesterday actually. Nicole Shanahan, basically a big D Democrat donor for the past however long she's had her multi-millions. She was for some reason people keep mentioning that she was married to a Google co-founder at some point. I don't know if that's how she got her money or what, but
Cool. We've got too much corporate money in politics.
Well, so, like,
says RFK.
RFK picked her because like she knows the Bay. She's like lives in the Bay Area and she like knows like how big tech is run and like how they want.
She knows how to optimize his search SEO for his campaign.
Well, that's part is like she also is really rich. Like she has like
Yeah.
is like tens of billions or millions of dollars.
Also, RFK Jr. is not poor either.
No, but he's
like-
not like he doesn't have like $70 million
Yeah.
laying around. So like she's got money, but she's not like terrible. She's also a lawyer. She is the leading board member, I don't know, of a foundation that she founded. She has the money to do it, basically promoting women's reproductive science, criminal justice reform, and environmental causes. So it's like I can't really like say like she sucks or like anything.
No,
but,
I wouldn't say she sucks. It just is.
and she's
kinda,
38, so
yeah.
she's a millennial. So like we're always like, that's always like a plus. It doesn't
Yeah.
actually make it any better of a
Like
grade.
again,
for
so
her,
is Lauren
but-
Boebert. So
Right,
you
yeah,
know,
no, it's not always a big thing. But basically, to end it, basically what RFK said was, Nicole and I left the Democratic Party. Our values didn't change. The Democratic Party did.
oh my god, that
That's
sounds like some
essentially-
Reagan shit. I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me.
Right. That's essentially his campaign in a nutshell.
Just fuck that.
At least
dude.
how he views it.
Honestly, I'm not a big
The
fan.
Democratic Party has always been captured by corporate interests, basically since the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
and even even in the Great Depression, large political and dollar forces made a lot of the decisions, including the pick for vice president in FDR's third campaign. We could have had not fucking Truman if it weren't for fucking hardline Democrats and political interests, partied interests. So we could have had fucking Henry Wallace, got it right this time, an amazing politician for the most part. So like, could have had somebody amazing instead of fucking Truman.
Truman, one of the worst Democrats.
God.
Well, definitely one of the worst post World War II Democrats or post Civil War Democrats. Yeah, fucking Truman sucked.
So
It's still not as bad.
the Democratic Party has always been this fucking way. It hasn't changed, really, other than that it's got more right wing since then. So
Wait, I mean, Biden's an extreme left socialist.
right, his extreme leftist policies. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? He's like the most centrist president we've had
Ever.
since Clinton.
Yeah.
Like,
He's more centrist than, well, I don't know if he's more centrist than Clinton. He's more liberal on social policies than Clinton, but
well, only because that's like
the norm.
The norm now.
Yeah.
If the norm was, what it was now in the 90s,
Yeah,
Clinton would have been the same fucking way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so those are the couple of bigger people. Obviously, RFK with being the most popular.
Do not vote for them.
Yeah, mostly.
I mean, you have a take on that.
Yeah, I'll get into it right now.
I think this is the time.
So I've got this is my take. So if you live in like one of the 6 like swing states, there's I think it's like 6-ish
Virginia, probably
Ohio,
Arizona would be called. I'd
Wisconsin,
say,
Nevada, maybe I don't know if Florida's still a swing state or not.
yeah, that's hard to say now. I think they've kind of
Um,
moved.
so if you live in one of those states where it's like kind of up in the air of like who's going to win, Minnesota, that is not the case. I don't believe that Trump has any chance of
I
winning
mean, he
Minnesota.
came closer than any Republican.
No, he absolutely did, but I don't think he's in a better position now than he's been in since he started running in 2015 or 2016. So like if you're in one of those states, I'm gonna recommend you vote for Biden. Like that's what you
Also,
should do.
also, there's like Georgia. I would recommend. Like, there's other states that are Texas. Like you could say Texas is solidly a red state, but Texas has been trending blue. Georgia's been trending blue, and it's one of these elections.
Okay, well, I'm saying if you believe like there's
Mhm.
an opportunity for Biden to win in a state that you may or may not be winning, then sure. Like I will say definitely vote for Biden. He is definitely the better of the two options that we have. Um, but for me, if you live in like New Hampshire, Vermont, or fucking like in like Minnesota here,
Mhm.
I I would rather you vote any at all
Mhm.
than not vote because the vote that you give to some of the lower like Senate and
Mhm.
House races,
Oh, please go vote,
um,
no matter what.
and if you vote D on those because you don't really know or you don't care if you haven't like done the research, um, and you only know presidential candidates,
Mhm.
like if you find somebody that you want to vote for and it's not Joe Biden and you're in a state where it's very clear like him or one of the other in Trump is
Mhm.
going to win, like go vote for them and then vote for senators and congressmen and congresswomen who are going to vote for pro-abortion pro women's rights and like vote for those kind of people on the legislative side and on your local levels because going out to vote is more important than
Yeah,
voting one way or the other necessarily, in my opinion.
absolutely. If you're gonna sit home or you're gonna go vote for Robert Kennedy Jr., or Vermin Supreme or
Yeah,
whoever.
Vermin Supreme. I mean, he's still kicking it.
Yeah, yeah, the
He
boot
got more
man.
votes than fuck. Who did he beat out? He beat out a couple people in New Hampshire. It was pretty hilarious.
I believe it. Yeah, I mean, in another world, in another life, I'd vote for him. I love that he's out there.
Yeah, he's got that boot on the head. It just kills me.
but yeah, if it's between not voting at all and voting, I definitely prefer you vote third party, and do the down ballot and vote. Ideally Democrat. I think in most elections, down ballot.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're interested in the things that we talked about, what
Hmm.
Democrats are supporting, which
Hmm.
I don't know, probably you are if you've made it this far
Right.
into our show, but
Um,
then go vote for the presidential candidate that you want, and then just you know,
but if you're gonna go vote anyway, vote for Biden, and like I understand that is a really frustrating prospect, and it's a really frustrating prospect for me. I voted for Hillary Clinton, and that was a really frustrating prospect for me. Bernie Sanders was the first candidate I ever donated to. It was the first primary. Like I always voted in primaries, but it was the first primary I ever really got super engaged in. And then I felt obviously super betrayed, as most of us did, by
right?
the DNC,
Yeah,
and still understood, as I think most Bernie supporters, because they try to throw that on us a lot, and the statistics do not back it up. Bernie supporters did not lose the election for Hillary Clinton.
no, she won the popular vote.
Mm-hmm.
How do you?
And and, and and Bernie supporters overwhelmingly still voted for Hillary Clinton. Like,
right? If they still voted,
um, but the reality is that this is it. We're stuck with Biden as an incumbent. It
yeah,
doesn't make sense. Like, don't Dean Phillips us, and
yeah,
like it doesn't make sense to primary an incumbent. It doesn't make sense to fuck something up when the alternative is obviously Donald Trump. And I know that that's frustrating because we all want change. We want change now. We're sick of it, but there is a path to change, and I promise that we're not just going through this whole episode and then telling you, just get in line. and vote. And I
Right.
know that a lot of times the third party thing feels like the path to change. It's not. It's not. You're not going to change anything with that. You are going to throw your vote away. You may help somebody you hate even worse than Biden or Hillary or
Right.
whoever become
And that's where
president.
I said, like, if honestly, if it were me, if I lived in a state that wasn't Minnesota, where we hadn't voted a
Mm-hmm.
Democratic, candidate in every single election in the last fucking
Mm-hmm.
almost 100 years, um, then I probably wouldn't feel this way. But I don't care who you vote for in a
Mm-hmm.
situation like that for president. What I do care that you vote for is ballot measures that are going to be on the ballot that you can vote for.
Mm-hmm.
I do care who you vote for your mayor, your city mayor,
Mm-hmm.
your state legislators that are actually controlling your
Mm-hmm.
lives on a local level. Like if you are going because you like RFK
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of it is just like I just want to generally help people, then vote
Mm-hmm.
D on the rest of it, and you're probably doing better than if you
Mm-hmm.
hadn't gone at all.
Yeah. I mean I'd agree with that. I still cannot endorse anybody voting third party in a presidential election until we have
Yeah.
ranked choice voting.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, obviously, once we get ranked choice voting, it's
Then it's negated. Then absolutely vote your conscience, and it's no longer a problem. But until then, this is the system we have, and we don't need more Bushes. We definitely don't need more Trumps. It's a problem. But again, not all doom and gloom. Not telling you to get in line forever and do this lockstep. Uh, the best path for change in the situation is fucking primaries, people. Y'all bitch, and I talking to you, and not really, but like everybody bitches about this, and then primary turnout is pathetic. Primary engagement is pathetic. And if you want the more progressive candidates, this is what Bernie Sanders did. This was the candidate that we wanted. He's the third party candidate that a lot of us wanted. But he ran as a Democrat in the primary. There's people doing this across the board,
Yeah.
from presidential elections to to local office, and get involved. Help them get on the ticket, get the party nomination, because then they will vote. They will put forward legislation. They will vote for ranked choice voting. They will vote for campaign finance reform. They will put legislation forward for those things. And it's not it's going to be fixed this election type of thing.
Yeah.
But if you want to change, want the system to change, that is where you're going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, working within the system, it sounds terrible. Like it sounds like
It does.
the worst thing I could think of as like the solution.
Right.
But unless we're gonna start talking about revolutions here,
Mm-hmm.
there's really no other peaceful option.
No, there's not. Well, and then a lot of times people are like, "Well, I'm just sick of it. Let it burn down." Sure, let the Republicans get it, and because they can't competently, tie their own fucking shoes.
Which is like there's something to be said about Trump, and I will
Mm-hmm.
say, like, I don't believe that Trump will follow Project 2025 as well as Reagan followed
No.
the Heritage Foundation's plan, because Trump only does what he believes will make him more popular.
Trump does Trump.
Trump does Trump. He doesn't do the Republican Party. So I will say, if there was any candidate who I would ever want to be like coming in potentially and like receiving this policy, like found this plan
Mhm.
of that is like so widely like adopted by the Republican Conservative Party,
Mhm.
like it would be Trump, because he's not a real Republican in that sense. He doesn't
Yeah.
actually care about all those things. He just cares about maintaining his brand and like
Mhm.
his like popularity.
It's one of those playing with fire things with
No,
him,
I
especially
agree.
because like his
It's not good.
his followers are his followers, and and there's same with Reagan and Baby Bush. They're idiots, and Reagan and Baby Bush were more useful idiots for the people who are trying to push the Project 2025 stuff.
Right.
But if you can get him to appoint this person, assign this person
True.
to this,
Yeah.
and he will do that because he doesn't fucking know who they are. He doesn't
Yeah.
care, and he has nobody who wants to fucking work
Yeah, I
for
mean,
him
he's going to
anymore.
be, it's another 4 years of appointing, right-wing judges who are going to be blocking any, anything like that. So it's there's nothing good that can happen with Trump being elected, certainly. So like that's why I definitely am like, if you have a chance in hell that Biden could win in your state, vote for Biden. If it's not like solidified. But
Yep.
yeah.
So get out there, get involved in primaries. If you want to break the two-party system, voting in primaries for people who support ranked choice voting and campaign finance reform, because it's not going to be Republicans that are going to pass that legislation.
No, and it's more than likely going to be your local representatives that you are pushing for them to start to being promoted of. So if you push your local, the local push up to your state, and then you'll get states like Nevada here, where in November you will have a ballot measure to provide open top 5 primaries and ranked choice voting for general elections. That is massive.
That is huge.
That is fucking huge.
And that is where the change is made.
Right.
And remember, all
That
of
is where
those
the change
people,
is made.
people don't just wake up one morning and they're like, "I'm running for president." Okay, they start in your state legislator, and and then they move up to Congress.
Unless you're Trump or like Vivek Ramaswamy, or
Right.
some shit like
There's exceptions to the rule, but like all of these people have moved up, and you'll probably never even hear about them until they're a United States senator or congressman or governor.
Yeah.
But they didn't start at those levels. They started at that local level where you can have bigger impact, and they have bigger impact on your life.
Right. It's like you're building up the infrastructure here for the change that you want. Unfortunately, it's not, unless you break the current infrastructure, you have to build it in your vision, which is a lame answer. But
It really is. It's a shitty thing to say, and like we understand how many of you cringed when we're like, you need to work within the system.
Right. Yeah.
But it's unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't have a better alternative. I would love to have somebody who comments on the episode and be, even just a brief, comment saying like, this is actually what we could do. It's like, okay, like let's talk about that. But
yeah, I'd love to hear,
I don't see a better path.
Nope.
I would love to go a different way. That's better because I don't love it, but like that's the best way I can see.
And that's the path that we can see that would, if followed, could actually achieve some of the things that we would like to see achieved. At least start moving in that direction, and so push your people in your primaries to not take PAC money and to support campaign finance reform, and and donate to those people, because those people, you can't expect people to not be beholden to corporate interests if they can't get any money from their constituents. Support the people who aren't.
Send $5, honestly. Just like if that's all you can do, then do it. Like nobody's asking for hundreds of dollars from you. It's like, send $5, $10. That's all it takes to make a difference sometimes.
So figure out the people who are and that'll be where you start seeing that change. And we're already seeing it with, like you see the squad, and again, we haven't had a populist candidate like Bernie Sanders have a realistic presidential run in my lifetime, and probably our parents' lifetime, honestly. I mean, it's just not.
Mondale was probably the closest.
Yeah.
And he was obviously way before we were alive, but.
So, yeah, I mean, that's true. And it's happening. The change is coming, and it can feel like we're taking a step forward and 10 steps back a lot of the time, and in a lot of ways we are. But you getting involved, putting your money where your mouth is, voting in the primaries, voting in the local elections is where you're going to see this. And then once we get ranked choice voting, once we get rid of Citizens United and make this a legitimate system that could, in theory, support third-party candidates.
Getting rid of the Electoral College.
Yeah, the Electoral College is another huge one.
Winner take all states. Winner take all voting.
I think that is the only viable option forward.
Well,
And
and it's the start. Like, for God's sakes, like those are things that we can actually change. Like ranked choice voting, like you can actually implement that on a state level. And winner take all states are not every state. So pushing your state and your representatives to change that is a huge thing that you
even
can
within
do.
the electoral college, you can have
Yeah.
your electoral votes divvied the way that your state votes.
Yeah, what is it? Is it Washington D.C.? That's like super that way, I think.
There's a couple states
There's a
that
couple
do it.
states,
Yeah, I don't
but
remember what they are off the top of my head, but absolutely. I think that this is incredibly important to be pragmatic about this, and it sucks because obviously we're as idealistic as anybody. But if you want to see the difference, if you want to see the change, this is really the only way. And the people who want to burn the system down, like, yeah, sure, let the Democrats or let the Republicans win and let the system implode on itself. And I hear that a lot too, because obviously they're the most incompetent motherfuckers that have ever,
right.
like, I mean,
Yeah.
especially recently, like, so incompetent. But that is a very privileged take.
Yeah,
to take.
Exactly. Like people who are struggling today don't have that.
No, they don't have like yeah, we're straight white men and it probably never affect either of us.
Right.
But if you're, if you're a member of the LGBTQ community, or you're a woman, or you're an African American or any minority, waiting for the system to burn down so we can rebuild it in the image that we hope we could rebuild it in is
waiting
going
for the system to get worse, way
Yeah.
worse before it gets better. Doesn't seem like the greatest way
it's-
to address
No,
things.
and that's the thing is, remember, as frustrated as you are, there's people who are more frustrated. There's people who are being more hurt. There's people whose lives are literally at stake in these situations, and it sucks to say it, but we have to be pragmatic. We have to make the right choices in these situations and try to move forward with a cohesive plan as to how we're going to change the system we have while causing the least amount of harm to the people, to our fellow citizens, to our neighbors. And
That's right.
it sucks. It really sucks.
It does suck. And but I mean, at least we're offering a path forward.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but like there is hope, and it largely hinges on this election potentially. So, like I said, if there's just wrap it up. If there's an opportunity for Joe Biden to win your state, and it's not a for sure thing, definitely vote for him. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I'm just going to say just vote for him no matter
Yeah,
what at this
that's right.
point. And, start throwing your protest votes out in the primaries and doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, it is tough to do that if there is no primary like there was this year. And I understand the incumbency thing, but and that's like RFK is huge. Like, oh, they're rigging the election in this way. It's like, well, it's just incumbency does that. So
yeah, it makes absolutely no sense. Like, the people who are frustrated about Biden not doing debates with RFK or whatever the other woman running, and then or
Marianne
Dean Phillips,
Williamson.
Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips, and not humoring this primary thing in an incumbency year. I don't blame them. I don't blame the DMC. It would be stupid for them to do that at this point when, we've seen what the alternative is because we've had the alternative, and you don't fuck with an incumbency year. So
yeah, I mean, like, was there a challenge for Trump in 2020?
No.
On the Republican side?
No.
No.
And then the thing is that you realize that hurts the incumbent when you humor an internal challenge, because obviously you get the mudslinging from your own side.
Oh wait, I lied. There was
No.
Bill Weld.
Oh, I remember Bill
He
Weld.
got one delegate.
Yep.
He got one delegate.
I do remember Bill Weld.
Rocky De La Fuente. He got 0 delegates.
Yeah, that sounds like not somebody Republicans would
Joe
vote
Walsh. I don't know. And then Mark Sanford. So there was like a few, but definitely nobody like RFK who was polling at single digit percentages, full integer level percentages,
Well,
But
I think we've beat this to death.
yeah,
I
sorry
want to
guys.
make sure that people understand that we hear you. We are on the same side as you. We are not a part of the Democratic Party
No,
specifically or
they just
anything
happen
like
to more align
align.
with our interests than Republicans, certainly.
And the reality is that we just we're taking the bitter pill and seeing the pragmatic move forward is unfortunately, primaries 4 years down the road, and that might not even be the time that does it, and it may be another corporate party person then, but we can keep pushing and we can keep building that infrastructure at the lower level that
Yeah.
we keep talking about and moving towards that change. Because remember, nothing happens, especially in Washington, overnight, and the
No, definitely
Republicans
not.
didn't get to where they are overnight,
Yeah,
and
they
they've
didn't. They
been
didn't plan out all the
yeah.
fucking court shit
Mm-hmm.
overnight. Talk about decades, right?
They've been playing the long game, and it's time that we start focusing on that long game too.
Yeah,
And
honestly,
that long game doesn't start with getting Donald Trump another round in the Oval Office.
no, it does not.
All right, guys. Well, thank you once again for hanging out. We love all of you for listening to us sit here and ramble on while we drink beer. We appreciate the opportunity. We are now fully monetized on YouTube, so
Whoop, whoop.
if you listen / watch us, because you can see my eyes there for all of the people who
Yeah, I love
who,
that comment.
who are interested in what those look like. I promise you, they're just mostly round, kind of almond shaped. Maybe some Asian in my history somewhere. Who knows? You can do that there. You can see it there, and then that's the first way we've been monetized on any platform for the
Yes,
podcast. Uh, but we're happy that you listen to us wherever you listen to us, and we take it where we can get it.
that's right.
If you want to support us in other ways, you can go to offjowagon.com and buy our merchandise. We have Let the Meat Toast merchandise there.
That's
We
right.
have a Let the Meat Toast on account on pretty much every social media platform, all the major social media platforms now. We don't do Twitter, X, whatever that bullshit is, but
No,
the rest of them we got it, as well as Off Wagon. If you follow me on TikTok, on YouTube, Instagram, all of those, it's always greatly appreciated. We do this because you guys listen to us, and hopefully get something out of the content we make. So we love you all. We appreciate you giving us the opportunity to do this. And we will see you next week.
that's right. Thanks for tuning in.